From the athleticism to the artistry, the fanciest footwork to the friendliest faces.
50 years.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime.
Together, Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean are one of a kind. Who's the boss?
He thinks he's the boss. Yeah.
Can't you see your hand up my back?
On the ice.
What a marvellous, marvellous set of marks.
And off. Do you get sick of answering those questions of, are you together, have you ever been together? From the early days...
Everything seemed just to click into place.
...till their twilight years. What's it going to be like that final time you dance together? This is the extraordinary story of Torvill and Dean. As the most famous ice skaters in history,
Well, it's quite exciting.
there's not much the world doesn't know about Torvill and Dean. Or so you'd think. Behind all their success and all the showbiz,
Torvill and Dean, or should I say Dean and Torvill? Take one.
there's one thing they've kept relatively quiet. Their superstitions. What is it about the left foot?
If I put my right foot on first, it would feel completely wrong.
Feels weird.
50 years of putting it on like this. So staying with it, sticking with it.
Have you ever done the other
No,
side?
no.
And I certainly wasn't going to be the one to mess up the routine that's kept this pair going for half a century. Oh, thank you.
Oh, slowly as she goes.
What could possibly go wrong here? Jayne is 67 and Chris is 65. And they're still unstoppable. Teach me a trick. What can I do?
Spread.
Oh, no.
Step wide,
That's just
step
showing
back.
off. That's just... And for a novice like me,
And push left.
their enthusiasm is
Right.
comforting.
Bring your feet back together.
Oh.
And right.
I'm doing it.
And left. And right. There we go. Skating together.
Very good.
The Olympic champions turned TV stars are now preparing for their final tour, an arena spectacular around Australia, looking back on their storied careers. But at rehearsals in Melbourne,
They're spinning.
And now we're spinning.
they're clearly not the ones who need the practice.
Yeah.
Well, then you finish it. Take your arm out to the side. You can do a curtsy. And down and back up. Ta-da.
Can you believe that all these years later you're still doing exactly what you love by each other's side and your superstitions are as clear and evident as ever? It's all the same. You've kept it going.
Yeah, I mean, you have to pinch yourself sometimes that we are still being able to do what we're doing. I wouldn't have changed anything.
Even things that didn't quite work out, you learn from that experience and you do something different the next time or something better.
Do you think that's because you've never given away the thing that you truly love?
Oh, definitely.
We've gone through all those periods in everybody's life, you know, from the teenagers to the 20s to the 30s, families, marriages, sometimes divorces, and yet we're still here.
Luckily for us, something has come up and then come up again and again, and we're still doing it, you know. Who'd have thought?
I wouldn't have.
No.
The story of Torvill and Dean starts here, Nottingham, England. They met as 10 and 12-year-olds at the local rink. Jayne had taken up the sport after visiting for a school excursion, and Chris had unwrapped his first pair of skates on Christmas morning. I want you to close your eyes, to think about it and feel it and remember that moment when you first went skating and what that felt like.
It was magical. As soon as I got there, I just thought, oh, I like this feeling of gliding and motion. But I also was watching other skaters that were good, doing like really clever things like spins and jumps and all sorts of things. I kept looking and thinking, well, I'd like to do that. I'd really like to try that. I wanted my own skates, so I pestered Mum and Dad. And my mum said, well, we'll buy you a second-hand pair because we don't know how long you're going to keep it up. They're still doing it.
Little did she know.
Little did she know, yeah.
For me, it was a departure. It was something other than football, what everybody played. And so to go to the ice rink was, I felt, really unique because I didn't know anybody else that lived there that went ice skating. So for me, it was originality. Jayne was the queen of the rink when I started, but then your partner left to go to London to find a better partner. And I had a partner, and she left to go to London to find a better partner. And then we found each other.
When the pair hit the ice together as partners in 1975, they had no idea how far they'd go. They certainly would never have guessed their first skate would one day be recreated for a biopic about their lives. Jayne and Chris, along with their coach, Betty Calloway, had the whole rink to themselves.
She put us together and she asked us to take a waltz hold, and we did. And then we were a little bit like this because, you know, we were a bit shy of each other.
We had to have a clear gap between us.
Yeah, and she suddenly pushed us together and said,
Nose to nose, almost.
Need to be this close together when you dance. And then she went off the ice for a short time and left us standing there in this hold. And our faces were really close like this, but we were kind of looking everywhere.
Awkwardly.
Because it was like we were 15.
Not really,
it was
we
like,
didn't really know each other that well to
no.
chat and talk about anything. And
Did you say anything?
No.
Just, how long do you think she'll be?
Yeah. Do you think she's coming back?
Anyway, she came back and she said, well, you passed the first test because you're still here and still in
We
Holland.
hadn't left the building at that point.
And then she would ask us on a weekly basis, do you think you're going to stick together? Is this a partnership? And we didn't want to jinx it, so we kept saying, don't know whether we're committed yet.
We'll let you know.
Committed yet. And
But did you know?
I think
Well,
we
we haven't-
secretly did, but we'd not even said it to each other.
we still haven't.
No.
Do you want? No, I'm not going to ask you. Don't want to jinx it.
So much of the Torvill and Dean magic is unspoken and always has been. But as up-and-comers, finding time to nurture their talent and their friendship wasn't always easy. Especially when Jayne started working full-time in an office job and Chris joined the cops.
Obviously, you know, being a policeman, I was somewhat ridiculed to begin with. But then once you sort of hit the media and the newspapers,
Local
at the time,
newspaper,
local
he
newspaper,
became
Nottingham Evening
famous
Post,
at the police force, didn't
have
he?
a picture of you in the Nottingham Evening Post, that becomes like, oh, so you're doing this for serious, are you? and then after
You
that...
must be good.
You must be good. And then policemen always find a place to come and have a cup of tea. And late at night, some 10 or 12 o'clock at night, they knew the side door would be open and they'd come in and take their hats off, sit down and watch us practice.
Yeah.
If only those officers had realised they had a front row seat to the performers who'd become the best in history. Under the careful eye of coach Betty Calloway, Jayne and Chris quickly rose through the national and international ranks. Though they weren't quite famous enough yet to have their names spelled correctly on television. By 1980, they'd made it all the way to their first Winter Olympics in New York.
We placed 5th in the Olympic Games and 4th in the World Championships of that year. And there was one couple that we knew were going to retire, so there was a possibility the following year, the 1981 Championships, we could get a bronze medal. And we wanted to go all out for that, so we gave up our jobs And if it didn't work out, we had enough money that we could sort of afford not to work for a few months, do the championships and then go back to work.
But were you conscious of the fact that you were up against the Russians and the East Europeans who are professional?
They were, I mean, they have the opportunities to rehearse all day and practice all day and have all the facilities. And if we were going to compete with them, then we needed to do that too. So we wanted to have the freedom to rehearse all day.
That freedom was granted by the most unlikely saviour. As luck would have it, Nottingham City Council had a sports fund which had never been spent. So they decided to give the money to Jayne and Chris, the greatest hopes the town had ever seen.
It was just perfect timing because they agreed to sponsor us for 4 years, which we were just amazed and overwhelmed by.
Would you have made it, do you think, looking back honestly now, would you have made it without that sponsorship?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, but I really don't feel that we would, because we wouldn't have had the chance to do what we wanted to do with our training, etc.
Yes.
We wanted to train abroad and we certainly wouldn't have had the money to afford to live abroad.
That generous grant allowed Torvill and Dean to move to Germany. And as you'll see, set course for a rapid rise to the top, which crescendoed with an unusual but stunning performance at the 1984 Olympic Games. The entire world held its breath for that routine.
Well, we did as well.
I was going to say we did.
Back in 1984, millions of Brits couldn't take their eyes off the television as they watched two of their own make history. Passion and precision, skill and seduction. An unlikely meeting of technical prowess and creative genius. Pulled off perfectly by ice dancers Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean. The entire world held its breath for that routine.
Well, we did as well.
I was going to say we did.
Though they made it look effortless, it wasn't.
A rather special train arrives in Sarajevo.
Jayne and Chris were the favourite heading into the 1984 Olympics in Sarajevo, so the pressure was inescapable.
Up until that point, we had won the World Championships the previous 3 years. And so everybody, the media said it was ours to lose. And quite honestly, we didn't want to hear that. All we wanted to do was train to our utmost to be the best that we could.
Yeah, I mean, as my mum famously said, after winning a world championship, I think for the first time, there's always someone better than you.
Thanks, Mum.
Cheers, Mum.
Behind the charisma and confidence was a careful plan to gain an edge on their competitors. And it started in the warm-up. While the other couples practiced together, Jayne and Chris had their own ideas.
Our thing was we warmed up separately, and then at the end of the warm-up, we would hold hands and
We'd
go back
do one warm-up together,
and then
but we wouldn't practice any of the routine.
any of the routine. It's almost saying we don't need
to practice.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I think psychologically to the others, they'd look at us and go, oh, they're ready, aren't they?
But their calculated thinking didn't end there.
We start on our knees and the ice is slippy. And I'd go on and scuff the ice where I knew that we were going to kneel. And so it wasn't as slippy. Just taking everything in, trying to alleviate any possible mistakes at all.
Yeah, because if you're kneeling on the ice and your weight goes slightly off, you could easily slip. You know, the knee could run away from you. We didn't want that.
Clever.
Yeah.
Just strategic.
Yeah.
Were you quietly confident though?
I don't think we even allowed ourselves to feel that.
And we wouldn't ever say that to each other either.
No.
I think we've got this. No.
But Torvill and Dean did have it. They nailed their routine, scoring 6 5.9s and 12 perfect sixes.
What a marvellous, marvellous set of marks.
The best result for a single program in history.
I mean, your routine went places that never did before, the music choice. You brought like a sexiness to skating that we'd never seen before.
I think that the routine had a real drama and emotional content to it. We created a scenario in our head. It was like a Romeo and Juliet, the boy meets girl, and together they've fallen in love, but they were never destined to be together because the families wouldn't allow it. And so what they decided to do was climb the volcano and throw themselves in, that they'd be together in eternal death.
It worked in our heads. It was good to have a story.
It was a scenario that we worked on. So if you look at it, you'd see the intimate part as it starts and as it grows. And
we get more intense.
And over the ice, it sort of weaves up and down the ice as if it's sort of walking and getting higher up the volcano with the final crescendo lying on the ice.
Yeah, thank God it's over. You can't fake the chemistry between you two, though.
We believed in what we were doing when we were skating.
Yeah. We knew that we had to believe in what we were doing, believe in our story to make it work for the rest of the audience.
And it worked.
Luckily it did.
Yeah.
And the performance tonight, Jayne, how did that actually go for you?
Well, as I say, I can't remember it so quickly, but everything seemed just to click into place, and we were very pleased with the way we skated.
Now, I suspect there's going to be a bit of a party in a short while.
So I've just heard. I didn't know before, but apparently.
Chris, any thoughts about how you might celebrate now for the rest of the week that you're here?
It might be a long night.
Jayne and Chris returned to Britain as icons.
Had they been on skates, the champions might have been able to sweep past the press photographers.
They received a hero's welcome wherever they went. And their celebrity status never dimmed.
Out of each Olympics, there usually comes a star. And I think we were that in 1984. We still have people come to us and say, I remember where I was when you won that gold medal.
Did you ever have a moment where you thought, oh, this is not what I signed up for, I just was going to be a professional skater?
No, this is the best job ever.
Yeah.
In their 5 decades together, there's one question Torvill and Dean have never been able to escape.
That Torvill and Dean chemistry, that magic, how deep is it off the ice?
After the break, did they or didn't they have a romantic relationship?
Never thought about it?
You can pick any snippet of vision of Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean, and they look like two people in love. On the ice and off it.
I didn't think it was as beautiful as that.
It's beautiful.
Rumours of romance followed the superstar skaters everywhere.
And that Torvill and Dean chemistry, that magic, how deep is it off the ice?
We consider it sort of private. Whatever happens and whatever the relationship is. Maybe we don't know what the relationship is.
Now, I don't mean to be offensive, but how do you feel when you read crits that say that that on ice the two of you are like a couple of people making love with their clothes on?
Oh.
Not my line, by the way. I mean, are you aware of the romance of what you're doing? Are you aware of the fact that that is part of the fantasy?
Well, yes, because we believe in the part that we're playing, and if people think that, then we're obviously getting over some of the mood.
And while these dance partners often danced around this topic in their youth,
will they be following Elton John's precedent by tying the knot in Sydney?
Oh, no. No.
Not yet.
Don't think we'll have much time for that.
these days they admit they've always had strong feelings for each other, but insist it's purely platonic.
For us, what was important in our lives was, you know, the skating and doing what we could to the best of our ability and having new challenges and being creative.
Never thought about it?
Have you thought about it?
No.
No. No.
Just like that. So you've never had any doubts of whether you could have been together or you should have been, or you could have had both the career and been together?
I think what we had witnessed in the past is sometimes partnerships that were partners off the ice, if that partnership off the ice fell down and they split up, then the partnership on the ice didn't continue, and that was never going to be something that we'd ever do.
So you consciously decided that you were going to put your skating before ever exploring a romantic relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you make the right call?
What do you think?
What do you think?
Well, I think we did.
I think we did.
You know, she's my best friend.
And these best friends have stood by each other through all life's ups and downs. While Jayne has been happily married to sound engineer Phil Christensen for 35 years, Chris was less lucky in love. His first marriage to Canadian ice dancer Isabelle Duchesnay ended after 2 years in 1993.
Were you cheating on Isabelle?
No, not at all.
Is there even the smallest chance that you and Chris someday might get back together?
Absolutely never. It would be the worst mistake I could ever make, or he could ever make, is try and save something that cannot be saved.
The following year, Chris found love again with American ice skater Jill Trenery. But they split 6 years later. And all the while, speculation about the enduring bond between Jayne and Chris never went away.
Do you get sick of answering those questions of, are you together? Have you ever been together?
We've not been asked. We don't get asked so much anymore. I remember when I'd not long been married to my husband, who's called Phil. Quite often, some people would come and call him Chris, and I used to go, and he was polite enough not to correct them. it was just funny.
And how was that always accepted by your partners? That you know, to the world, you were this beautiful couple, but you actually had your separate lives.
Yeah, I think it was harder for my husband because he wasn't involved in skating. He was a sound engineer, and so he came into our lives as a bit of an outsider because he didn't understand the skating. Whereas Chris's first wife, she was a skater in a dance team, and your second wife was a figure skater as well. So they understood it a bit more.
Is it true that this relationship is each other's longest relationship?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime. What is that in marriage? What's 50 years?
It'd be a diamond, jubilee, something,
it's
anniversary.
It's golden.
It's golden.
Golden.
Would you describe it as golden?
Golden, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
As the duo prepares to perform for the final time in their last dance tour of Australia, they remain as charming as ever.
There you go. What is it about each other that you love?
I like that he's just as passionate as I am.
Yeah, I mean, we're different people in the sense that, I think we've got a yin and yang about us that, I tend to push things forward, and Jayne is sort of the sensible one. Well, just the sensible one that goes, just a minute, let's work that out. How is that going to work?
Who's the boss?
He thinks he's the boss.
Why don't you see your hand up my back?
But this fairy tale on the ice didn't always look like it would last forever.
Let's talk about the breakup.
Coming up, the personal reasons Jayne and Chris decided to call time on their partnership.
Why did you ever think it was a good idea to go separate ways?
An afternoon doesn't get any more British than a high tea, especially when you're with national treasures Torvill and Dean.
One of the most surreal meals we've had was a luncheon with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. They had all the footmen with their regalia, the wigs and their uniform.
And then when everyone's there and settled, then the Queen comes in with Prince Philip and the corgis. It's just like,
feeding
whoa.
the corgis under the table.
Yeah.
Here we are thinking your most memorable moments are on the ice.
That was very memorable, though.
The prize-winning ice dancers have spent 50 years crisscrossing the globe together.
Do you ever get sick of each other on the road?
Don't think so.
Oh, there's a bit of a long silence there, Chris.
No, I'm trying to think, though, when...
He gets fed up of me when I tell a story
Jayne
and
can
it's
tell
long.
a story that lasts a long time, so I know to...
Too much detail.
A lot of detail that I can tune out.
It sounds very old married couple.
Yeah, well, we're like an old married couple.
The beautiful bond between these best friends solidified way back in 1984 at the Sarajevo Olympics. This flawless performance turned Torvill and Dean into household names and made ice dancing somewhat cool.
Do you regard it as an art or as a sport?
It's one of those things that is in the middle somewhere.
The pair was so popular, after the Olympics, they decided to retire from amateur events and turn professional. That meant they could make real money from the sport they loved and perform beyond the constraints of competition rules. And their first stop was Sydney.
Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean used false names to enter Sydney quietly this morning, but it wasn't long before people realised that Shibata and Sherma were really Torvill and Dean.
I think we're more excited than anything because we've never been to Australia before. And
It's exciting to know that the place is already sold out before we go there, so we're looking forward to that.
For the next 10 years, while Torvill and Dean starred in sold-out shows, they couldn't compete at the Olympics. That competition was only for amateurs. But in 1993, the rules changed to allow professionals to enter.
I said, do you realise that we could go and skate again and compete? And Jayne sort of looked at me and went, no. And that was it. And then about 20 minutes later, she looked up and said, actually, maybe it's not a bad idea.
We started
could do
talking
again.
about it.
Because we'd done so much in that 10 years that it was another challenge.
And physically, we feel as fit as we've ever been because the work we've been doing in recent years has been, in fact, harder than the work before when we were competing.
Then, in their 30s, Jayne and Chris reunited with their original coach, Betty Calloway, who'd first partnered them up as teenagers.
Certainly, we've got to look forward and not back. It's no good saying, well, we were good 10 years ago. And we've got to go forward and look for new directions, new things. And it's going to be really very exciting.
10 years on from their last Olympic triumph, Christopher Dean and his longtime partner arrived in Norway tonight.
At the 1994 Games in Lillehammer, Norway,
Still the same excitement?
Yes, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
all eyes were on Torvill and Dean.
So really, the rehearsal over the next few days is going to be even more important, isn't it?
Well, we're rehearsed, we're ready.
But not everyone shared their excitement.
There's a theory that people in your sport didn't want you to win. Did you feel that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. We felt a bit of resentment.
Definitely, because, you know, you'd have people that were in line to medal, like in Lillehammer in the ice dance, and they'd probably done their apprenticeship for several years and gradually moved up, and then we come back into the mix.
You've been away for something, you're coming back. The people that have done their time, they're maybe looking at, like, why are you coming back? You're coming back for the glory or something like that. So we did feel that.
That controversy only made this pair more hungry to win. And their routine was spectacular. Flawless in the crowd's eyes. But disappointingly, not enough for the judges, who put Torvill and Dean in third place.
It was a strong routine. We thought it was as competitive as all the other couples.
Rumours the judges fixed the scores in favour of the Soviet teams who came first and second were rife. And some believed the Brits were punished for a risque lift that might have broken the rules.
Ice dancing is all about pushing the envelope. It's all about trying to create new manoeuvres, new moves, which are going to capture the imagination of the audience and indeed the judges. Sometimes you run very close to grey areas. This is what has happened, and maybe they pushed it back too far, but up to now, no one's known that. So let's have a further investigation, find out how these rules apply to everyone, not just to Chris and Jayne.
It was certainly, we felt, within the rules and regulations. You know, we consulted with our coaches and everything, and we were a little confused by the marks.
When you were standing up on the podium with the bronze medal around your neck, what were you thinking?
From me personally, we're still proud, and what I was proud of was that we'd had a really good skate, and you know, if we'd have skated badly, you'd think, well, that's why we got the bronze. But we knew we couldn't have skated better.
After the Olympics, Torvill and Dean stopped competing for good. Instead, they hit the road again on tour, taking ice dancing to the world for another 4 years. But after their run of shows ended in 1998, they decided they'd had enough. It was finally time to walk away.
Let's talk about the breakup. Why did you ever think it was a good idea to go separate ways?
It was very much a private thing, and it was a time when you wanted to think about a family. I married an American girl, and so, you know, the Atlantic was in the middle. I went to America, Jayne went to the UK, but we would still talk to each other almost on a daily basis.
And it wouldn't take long for this perfect pair to reunite.
Was it the ice or each other that drew you back?
After the break, why did Torvill and Dean join forces again?
So tell me, where do you feel more comfortable, on the ice or off it?
This is our space on the ice, and this is where we can be ourselves.
For half a century, the ice has felt like home to Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean.
Sometimes you kind of have a rain check and think, gosh, I can't believe we're still doing this. You just kind of take it for granted because we've never really stopped.
Do you still love it as much as you did when you started?
Yeah, you know, and the funny thing is, it's what we've done all our life, you know, from a 10-year-old to our retiree ages. So it's part of our DNA now, I think.
Oh, OK, ready, go.
Come on, then.
At 67 and 65, Jayne and Chris rightly spend a little more time now on injury prevention than they used to. But that's not to say disasters never happened.
Have you broken things on the ice?
Jayne's broken
Surprisingly
things
not.
of me on the ice.
I broke your nose.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
We were trying something new, and he was
spinning lift.
He was lifting me and spinning me right in front of him, but my elbow was up and went boof.
Oh.
And afterwards came off the ice, and I said to Jayne, "Does my nose look broken?" And she sort of looked at it and went, "No." but it was like this.
It clearly was.
When I went to see the doctor says, you know, you're in so much pain now, it's better I just set it here and now with my thumbs. So literally he strapped me down and did it, and it was the most painful thing. I think I was almost passed out.
You had tears.
About 3 days later, I went to see him, and he said, you know what, it hasn't really set well, so we're going to have to operate it anyway. You what?
What did you say to him after that, Jayne?
Probably sorry, yeah.
Then we had another incident where I had to slide under a table during professional shows. And so I was skating on it quite hard, and then I'd suddenly dropped to my knees, arched back and gone to the table. And on one instance, I went to do that, and I didn't go back far enough.
Misjudged it.
And I lifted the table with the bottom part of my lip. So I had stitches, and when I went back out on the ice.
You looked at me and I said, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because I could just see this little mark, and I didn't fully understand what he'd done, but then...
And us in the audience are none the wiser.
No.
We have no idea.
The show must go on.
The show must go on.
Putting on a show has always been the Torvill and Dean mantra. It's why they said yes to an unusual opportunity that popped up in 2005.
When we retired in the 90s, we never thought we'd be back in front of the camera again.
The pair hadn't skated together for years when television came calling.
We got a telephone call and said that we want to try and do a TV show of teaching celebrities to skate on ice. So we had that conversation, thought this is never going to work, but we'll do it.
Was it the ice or each other that drew you back?
I guess a bit of both.
We wouldn't have done it as single skaters, would we?
No.
Were you worried that your amazing legacy was on the line?
Oh gosh, the first time we went back to skate live in front of an audience again, yeah, it was quite nervy.
It was, yeah.
I remember getting the jitters about it. You know, when you've been doing it and you grow up doing it, it's like second nature.
Yeah.
Got it, done it. You walk away from it, and then suddenly it's like, now we want you to do it again. And, you know, when it's live on TV, because it's live, it's not, you don't get do-overs, and that's like competition, you know, you get that one hit,
That's what we were
chance.
used to, yeah.
So, yeah, it was a moment of putting yourself on the line again. But after the first show, it had amazing viewing figures. And from that moment on, it just kept on rolling, and now we're into our 17th series.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 17, we've been doing Dancing on Ice longer than our competitive career.
But beyond the glitz and glamour of the stage, there have been difficult personal challenges. Most of all, Jayne's struggle with infertility.
Yes, yeah, I couldn't conceive naturally, and so my husband and I decided to adopt, and it's kind of, it's a weird thought, because you think, if I'd have conceived, you wouldn't have the kids that you've adopted. Yeah. So I think it was meant to be, really.
Yeah, the process, I just remember, it was a long process for you as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, trying to conceive naturally, and then IVF.
It's easier to naturally have a child than it is to adopt children. But
the process was long.
Yeah. And you had lots of interviews, and I think I was one of your character witnesses.
Witnesses, yeah. Yeah.
What was it like watching your friend go through that?
I know how much they wanted to have a family, and it was a long, arduous process. But I remember the day you got the telephone call.
Yeah.
And that was quite amazing.
Jayne and her husband Phil became the proud parents of Kieran and Jessica.
I was an older mum. So, you know, when I went to, you know, you go to play groups and things, and you look around, you've got these 20-year-olds, and I was 40-something. But I was never one for being obsessed with reading books about what you should and shouldn't be doing. I used to ask my friends who'd got older kids and been through it, you know, so they would help me with the things like that when they were so young.
When you look at them, they're your perfect scores, aren't they?
Sometimes.
On any given day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not for everyone, but, you know, if you want to give a child a home, then, yeah, it's very rewarding most of the time.
Like any parents, you get your ups and downs.
Oh, yes.
Chris knows what it's like because he has 2 children as well, Jack and Sam, with his second wife, Jill. They split in 2010, and he's now coupled up with fellow British ice dancer, Karen Barber.
Do any of your kids skate?
No. To some degree, they didn't want to, but on the other hand, I didn't want to then, as a parent, be going to the rink for the second part of my life as well.
You knew what you were signing up to.
If you want to do tennis or golf or motor race, anything where the sun shines, I'm happy.
Chris and Jayne are also happy to have yet another reason to skate together. They're rehearsing for their final tour, which kicks off in Australia this June.
A lot of work is in the practice and not the performance. The performance is usually at the end of it. It's like an iceberg, you know, that all the work is done underneath here and the tip of it is the performance.
Even on the brink of hanging up their skates for good, Torvill and Dean still make it look easy.
It's good. Good?
Okay, yep, all good.
But believe me, it's not.
You're doing very well, by the way.
Thank you so much. I'm trying very hard to listen and skate at the same time.
Really love to be alone without all the ache and pain and the April showers.
It's hard to think of anyone else who's reached such phenomenal heights as both athletes and entertainers. Yet Torvill and Dean say their secret is simple: an unwavering optimism.
It's all been such a wonderful, rewarding thing. You know, when we were younger, did we go out to clubs and pubs and all of those things? No.
No.
We trained, but we enjoyed the training as well. Did we have children later in life? We did, but we were more mature as parents as well. So I don't think would change anything or lost out on anything.
No.
If anything, it's all been a gain.
Yes.
What's it going to be like on that final time you dance together?
I have no idea.
No idea,
I think it will be emotional.
But also I was thinking too, like, how the body might be feeling at that time after all those shows.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, what will take over, the emotion or the relief that after this show my body's going to rest?
It could be that.
Yeah.
But that will be our last skating performance, but I don't think it will be our last performance.
That'll never end, surely.
No.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
No. Not until you're in the box.
Hello, I'm Dimity Clancey. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.